Today I'm going to show you how to make raw fusion granola bars, and the only reason they're raw fusion is because the peanut butter is not raw and I'm using toasted coconut instead of raw shaved coconut. I'm going to do something very exciting. I'm going to add kale to these granola bars, and here I have a bunch of kale stems, and this is what is left over from the kale chips that I made. If you haven't watched that video, you don't use the stems in the kale chips. So you have all these stems that you get to use, and I had this idea recently and I gave it a try and it turned out really, really good. I love the flavor, so I'm going to show you how to do it. First, we're going to take the kale stems and chop them up into little pieces. So by little, these are just these like 1/4 inch little size pieces, and I want a cup of kale stems. So I'm going to take my measuring cup and just start filling it up. I have a rounded cup of kale stems and still just a little bit left. There's maybe a couple tablespoons left, so I'm just going to use those anyway. And here's where the magic begins. I'm going to take these kale stems and put them in my Vitamix. Now normally these would be crunchy if you dehydrate them and you'd have big chunks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pulse the kale stems so it turns into this fine texture that's going to blend easy. So now I'm just going to pop the lid on and I'm going to use the pulse function. Now those big chunks of kale are no longer popping around in the Vitamix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my spatula and go down the edges real quick and just get it back down towards the blades. Because I'm only using a cup of kale stems, it's not a ton of stuff, so it's gonna kind of stay around the sides. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw in my banana. Because this banana is also going in the recipe, rather than just mash it up with a fork and put it into my bowl, I'm just going to add it to the Vitamix with the kale stems. Perfect. So now I have this creamy kale banana pudding, basically. The first time I made this recipe, I just pulsed the kale and I dumped it in the bowl, and it had some texture to it, so it was a little bit chewy. So I'm excited to try it this way, where I blended the kale quite a bit and I won't even know it's in the recipe. First thing I am going to do is take my peanut butter. You could also use almond butter, you could use cashew butter. Because banana is in this recipe, I picked peanut butter because I think those two go well together. I don't measure 2 tablespoons, especially in a recipe like this, because it's just getting blended up. And then I'm going to take my banana batter. And the reason that I'm using banana in this recipe, the banana is actually what inspired this recipe the very first time I made it, when it didn't even have kale. When this all dehydrates, the banana is going to dry and be the binder, and it's going to be what keeps everything sticking together. And it's also going to add a lot of my sweetness, which I really enjoy getting sweetness from whole fruits, because I have all the fiber from the fruit. I'm going to have all the vitamins and minerals from the banana, and I don't have to use a ton of sweetener to create a mixture that sticks together when I dehydrate it. I'm just going to stir this real quick and incorporate the peanut butter. And it's pretty cool because this banana mixture is super green because of all the kale. I am always looking for ways to add greens to my food, whether it's sweet or savory, because dark leafy greens are the most nutritional food out there. And anytime I can add greens to something that you normally wouldn't think would have greens, I go for it. Only a few more ingredients. I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. This recipe calls for a teaspoon. I just eyeball it because I'm the culinary wizard and I know exactly when to stop. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Now I have all my wet ingredients. I'm just going to stir it a few more times. I have a 1/4 cup of raisins. I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of toasted coconut. And what I do when I have it toasted, I just pour it into my hand here and then crunch it up, and then it falls into the bowl. And then I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of dark chocolate chips. These are vegan, of course. just a 4th cup because I don't want it to make, I want this to be more of a trail bar, not necessarily really sweet, but who doesn't love chocolate in the granola bars? Next I'm going to do my oats, and I'm going to start with the cup. The first time I made this, I think I got up to about 2 cups, maybe a cup and 3/4. What's key with the recipes like this is you want to see how wet your ingredients are. Some bananas are larger than others, and some kale might have more moisture than others. So I'm just going to stir this up, and I'm just getting a good idea of how wet it is. And 1 cup of oats, it's super wet still. There's still a lot of banana, and I know just by looking at it that I could go up to 2 cups, and that's what I'm going to do. And 2's kind of going to be my max. And I know I can just stop there. And because I've made this in the past, I also know that's my baseline. Now I'm just gonna stir that up. Last ingredient I definitely don't want to forget is some sea salt. And salt is pretty important in a lot of recipes. It's just really what brings the flavors together and helps it stand out. And I just put a ½ teaspoon of Himalayan sea salt in there. And I'm gonna stir that last thing up. And now as I'm stirring, I can see it's starting to be more clumpy, and I can see how this would dehydrate really well into a granola bar. You can see it's not as wet, it's definitely wet, but it's gonna make a really good granola bar. Now's the really easy part. All I have to do is get my dehydrator sheet and take all this awesome granola bar batter and lay it onto my sheet. Now that it's on my dehydrator sheet, what I'm gonna kind of do is press it down, and I'm working on making a square shape. So already I go side by side and then press down again. And then I'll rotate it and go side by side, and this is just so it is so much easier to get into the shape I want. If I just continue going by the edges, and then I'll spatula to one side, and then I'm going to stop when I get to about a ½ inch thick, and then I get all the little cracks out of the top, and it's smoothed out nice and easy. So now I have this perfect little square here that you can see, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it, and I'm just going to take this sideways and then pick how wide I want it to be and then go across. And it really does not matter whatsoever because they're all going to go into your belly, and you're just looking for a size that you think would be good for a snack, that would be good for travel size. I go along the edges just slightly because when I score it, it presses them out a little bit. And then rather than do one really long skinny one, I'm going to do 3 rows just like that. You're going to score it any way you want, really, looking for that perfect size, hand-sized granola bar. Now all I have to do is throw this in the dehydrator at 105 degrees, and I'm gonna give it about 6 hours and then check on it. And once the top is dry, I'm going to flip it on just the mesh part. So I'll remove the sheet, and that way everything gets dehydrated evenly, and it should be done in the morning. And then you have this raw granola bar that has greens in it. I have a cup of kale in here with some dark chocolate and some banana and some peanut butter. They taste awesome. I hope you give it a try. Let me know if you experiment with your own flavor or this one. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please give me a thumbs up, comment. I'd love to hear from you. And let me know if you have any other ideas that you'd like to see me create. Just so you have an idea of what they look like when they're done, here's the first batch. I've already eaten about 3 of them before they were even done because I like them so much, but now you can see they're dry, and where I've scored them, they're just gonna break apart nice and easily. So here's a big chunk of them. I did a couple different sizes. So this one has 3 pretty good size, and then this last part, I actually scored it so I had some longer ones. Give them a try.